Wow, that was a win. A win is a win is a win. You win one, you lose it, you win it again. It was almost like a Lord of the Rings movie. Like you never knew what was going to happen next. We're going to talk about it. We got a special guest, Robbie Hyde from Barreled Up Podcast, is going to talk Astros baseball with us. Let's go right now.
Jainer Diaz, this is Locked On Astros.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on X at Eric Talkstros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can they find you at?
They can find me at Htown Wheelhouse on X, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on X and on Facebook, and at Back to the Bullpen on X, Instagram, TikTok, on YouTube as well, and iHeartRadio. Look, I'm always positive, always Stros. And we got our special guest, Robbie Hyde from the Barreled Up Podcast. Robbie, tell everybody where they can find you.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube, just my name, Robbie Hyde. You can find me on Twitter at GingerSnapHyde, and myself and Jim Riley of Ballcap Sports, we do the Barreled Up Podcast on Odyssey. So if you're looking for more baseball content, come on over to any of those avenues.
Speaking of baseball content, thank you for making us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go and check out the Locked On Astros podcast. We appreciate each one of you everydayers that make yourself us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify. Go ahead and hit that little subscribe button and give us a big fat like while you're at it. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time it is? It's game time, and it's time to get the show started. Brett, in the ninth inning or eighth inning, whichever inning it was, if it seemed like the Royals were dropping like flies. They lost two players to injuries on the same play, and then the Astros scored 4 runs in that inning to take the lead. This was one of those up and down games. Mostly it was up for the Astros, except for a few innings there.
Yeah, it was wild. And, Robbie, I'd like to get your take on this, because before we get to all that, I want to talk about the ejection of Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman, the umpire had a very liberal strike zone, a very wide strike zone, and it wasn't consistently being called on both sides. When the Astros, when Hunter Brown was on the mound, the same pitches that were strikes were now balls. Well, there were 2 pitches that Bregman got he didn't agree with. He got sat down. He walked in between the catcher and the umpire and apparently said, "Your strike zone's crap," or whatever. And the umpire just tossed him. And I was like, oh my gosh, there was no warning. He wasn't aggressive about it. It just seems to me like umpires they're getting stuff under their skin way too soon. Were you surprised that Bregman got tossed for something like that? Or is this just become the norm?
My take usually with, umps and whatnot, I do, weekly power rankings, and I always get someone in my chat, talking about umps, bad calls, whatever. I'm usually the one to say it always goes both ways. But in this case, it's kind of where, like you said, if you're having some inconsistencies where, these teams are getting these calls, but the other team, it's not working the same way for the other team. Well, then there's a problem there. And to me, Alex Bregman, he's a pro's pro. He's been one of the more consistent players in the game for a long time now. And to me, I think if, you got him saying something to you, you're probably doing something wrong. Of course, there's always a better way to say things, but hey, you're in the heat of a playoff race right now. So, I would, for me personally, I would lean towards Bregman here, but I think with umpires, the way it's been just for a while now, I feel like more and more is starting to get under their skin a little bit. They're just more under the microscope than ever these days, right? You're talking about robo-umps. Who knows if that ends up happening or when that could happen. But, it's kind of one of those things where, I feel like Bregman had a case there. So
Yeah. If anybody, somebody like Alex Bregman, who has the best knowledge of the strike zone of anybody in baseball, you would think he would get the benefit of the doubt. You have to think that he probably walked by umpire and said, "Hey, do you need some glasses?" or something like that for him to get that offended. It had to be something that just got under his skin, or maybe he's been hearing it from the Astros bench. There had to be something else that led up to that. Luckily, it didn't affect the game. Not as bad as the Astros losing that no hitter the other day when Bregman left. I know that wasn't that was an umpire decision. That was a Joe Spada removing him because the Astros were up 10-0 at that time. But Alex Bregman is a big piece to this team. And for them to make this comeback without him in the lineup, that just shows that the Astros, have a lineup where you have Ben Gamel, and you also have Jason Hayward leading the charge. And who would have thought this when you started the season, that you'd be relying on other people's throwaways? Robbie, what do you think about the Astros' recent moves of getting people that have been DFA'd?
The Hayward one, that kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. And but for me, you're still waiting on Kyle Tucker to come back. Looks like he's starting to get a little closer. It feels like he's going at a snail's pace, but it feels like you're getting there, right? He's starting to ramp up the running a little bit. But to me, if you're able to get a guy like Jason Hayward, who, I'll use the phrase again, a pro's pro, he's a good veteran guy, and a lefty bat to help you out until Kyle Tucker gets back. Hey, I was okay with that, really. And hey, he came through tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Jason Hayward he's actually 3 for 7 in his career versus Brady Singer, and hadn't gotten a hit off of him in the last couple seasons. So not bad, not a bad matchup. And you love him contributing the first game in. And, I guess the law of averages is typically against someone the very first game, the second at bat. But those were some key hits, and they hit those bleeders out of the infield. They were just cue ball shots, had a lot of English on them. And that's really what it takes sometimes, because the fielding, they were getting boos from the stands. They were making errors. Jose Altuve made an error. The Jeremy Pena error, where it should have been completely routine, just squeaked under his glove. But this team has fought so many different obstacles. One of the obstacles they haven't fought lately is their starting pitching has been excellent. And Hunter Brown goes out, even though he gets frustrated at times from the pitch, from the umpire, just goes out and deals. Now, he was out there on the mound and he saw his lead dwindle, but he had another solid outing. Eric Getty the night before was your stopper. Eric Getty has been nails. Eric Getty should probably be pitcher of the month in August, if I'm being honest. 3 double-digit strikeout games in 1 month. He's got 47 strikeouts now this month, and only 19 hits he's given up. Just doing phenomenal things. So, Eric, Hunter Brown seems to be automatic, and he seems to be getting stronger as the year goes on.
Yeah, the Astros seem to have 3 aces at this moment. I know Verlander, he hasn't pitched to the ace level at the moment, but I'm going to give him that label right now. But you have Framber Valdez pitching very good. You have Hunter Brown pitching very well. Spencer Arrighetti, even though he's been dominating recently, he's got a while to get there. But the Astros have a lot of wild cards, a lot of just options for whatever a potential playoff rotation, or just going down the stretch, because that's when you have a lot of pitchers tire out. We see what Ronel Blanco's been doing. He's been kind of tiring out a little bit, but Hunter Brown went out there. I know Brian Abreu gave up that 3-run double in this game. Unfortunately, sometimes bad luck happens. Gamble gave his best effort out there, but you can't go make every play. You saw Jason Hayward try to make that unbelievable catch earlier in the game. He was trying to win over Houston fans with that great catch, but I don't think the pitching is the problem. I know Ryan Presley, will have to talk about this a little bit more later with all the other moves. He made his, he came back and he looked a little bit better, and maybe this is Ryan Presley. Maybe he just needs some time off. So hopefully, especially for if the Astros make the playoffs, you need Ryan Presley to be America's closer, who's not a closer, and be on top of his game. So we'll go ahead and continue this conversation in a second. I do want to hear Robbie's thoughts on the Astros rotation and thoughts about the bullpen going down the stretch. And we'll go and continue this conversation next.
No, Eric, there's videos. What are you doing? This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker. Look, I've got Liquid IV right now, and I absolutely love it. It is great for in the morning, getting hydrated. It's even better when you go work out. You go for that walk. You go for that run. It quenches the thirst. It has electrolytes, essential vitamins, clinically tested nutrients for the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. That's Liquid IV, powered by live hydroscience and optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients to turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten, and dairy-free, as well as soy-free. So when you do, go to liquidiv.com, use the code MLB at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order when you shop Better Hydration by using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com.
Hey guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Whether it's on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to us. Make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go and check us out. I know Jose Altuve made an error. Sometimes even the best make errors. So we'll go ahead and move on. Robbie, what do you think about the Astros rotation going forward? I know they made the Kikuchi addition. A lot of people were kind of scratching their head. Why did you give up so much of the Astros' future for this? But what do you think about the Astros pitching going down the stretch?
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, before I do get to that, I wanted to just point out one stat with Jason Hayward I forgot to mention earlier. And this is why like the Astros are so good, where they how do I say this? Where they are it's a matter of how do I say that? Let me just point out the stat. Jason Hayward in his career over a 170 WRC plus on 2-0 counts, and he took advantage of a 2-0 count tonight. So just want to throw it out there. But for the pitching side of things, they've been amazing in the second half. Absolutely amazing. They're first in starting pitching when it comes to Fangraph wins above replacement during that time. Valdez is 5-1 during that time with an ERA of 2.40. Eric Getty, he's been sensational over the second half. And we talked not too long ago about when Eric Getty went up against my Red Sox, and my goodness, he just absolutely dominated. Kikuchi, what a great pickup he's been. Yeah, you had to give up a lot to get him, but you kind of look at the market at the time, and you look at what you were having to spend on to get Tanner Scott, right? If you're on the Padres, they give a boatload, and yeah, so that was the market at the time for the Astros. They still have that winning window here where they can go win a World Series, and they needed to make a move. I was saying that for so long, and Astros fans were saying it for so long too. They needed to add one more guy, and Kikuchi was a solid add despite the expensive price, but he has been very solid for you. Verlander, he's come back, thrown about 10 innings at this point. He's been, whatever, but he's still trying to find his way a little bit. But Hunter Brown, this guy looked great tonight. Got a little messy there in the 7th inning, but that's not on him. He's just been amazing. We talked about him the last time we spoke on the Barreled Up podcast. Yeah. Hunter Brown, this year, he is completely he's just brought a different version of himself this year. Last year, he was basically a 3-pitch guy. This year, he's really working with 5 pitches, right? Last year, he was mainly a fastball guy, right? And had basically 2 secondary pitches. This year, he's lowered the usage of the fastball, and he's worked in some other pitches as well. That has been the biggest difference for him. He's just less predictable out there. And you're just seeing it right before your eyes. This is a guy a couple of years ago. I'm like, all right, here comes the Hunter Brown breakout, right? And, you just didn't really see it. And he's figured it out this year. And going up against the Royals team, that's looked pretty solid this year. Yeah. Hey, good for him. And yeah, this pitching has been fantastic, right? If you just look at it, top to bottom, and that's even without Justin Verlander at this point. If they keep this going, they're going to be really tough to beat in the postseason. We know postseason, it's all about pitching, and they got a lot of it right now. So.
Yeah, Jason Hayward after the game said, "What a win! It was awesome to be here firsthand tonight in front of Houston fans." So he's played in Atlanta. He's played with the Cubs. I think he played with the Dodgers. Of course, that's who released him. But I think hopefully Astros fans make him feel welcome here. Hopefully, I would love to see a rematch versus the Astros versus Dodgers because I think we all think the Dodgers for Yordan Alvarez because not just because of the 3 home run games. David, who listens to our podcast the other day, was saying that Alvarez doesn't hit 3 home runs anymore, and then he hits 3 home runs in a game. So it's just kind of weird that the day or two after he said that, he hits 3 home runs. But the Dodgers could have given the Astros another gift that kind of propels them. I don't think Hayward's the answer, but he's another a part off the bench. And that's what the Astros have been lacking over the past couple of years. And hopefully when Tucker returns, we saw a much more agile Kyle Tucker making plays in the outfield, running a little bit, throwing the ball. He looked better, right, Brett?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely looked better. But, just to kind of piggyback to get in on some more Hayward talk, because after the game, he added to what he said, and he just talked about how coming over here, he had fielded basically a lot of different teams' offers, and he was surprised like who all had come calling, but he had such a short amount of time. And the reason why he wanted to come here is because he wanted to be a part of playoff baseball. And he said, these are the kind of games you win in a playoff atmosphere. And I told a friend of mine, I said, this weekend, it's going to feel like a playoff game, every game. The last few series have felt like that. And it's urgent right now because the Mariners, had you lost tonight, they would only be 3 games behind you. And even though I still to this day, I'm not worried about the Mariners in the end, you can't give them any footing or allow the door to be cracked because They could, in a 3 or 4 game series, kick that door wide open. And so the Astros control their destiny. The hard part is getting to the playoffs. And once they get there, Robbie, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that have enough respect for the Astros to know that they can't take them lightly because, it isn't 17 or it isn't 22.
Yeah. So I know, Robbie, you are a Red Sox fan. I know that the Red Sox are in a tough matchup for the wild card. I think the AL East is kind of out of the picture there. But what do you think about the Mariners? Do you think that they have a little bark left in them to possibly make a run to catch up to the Astros?
Here's the thing with the Mariners, right? And you all know this too. Their starting pitching is also very good, right? So that if there was any sort of a hiccup there, then you'd probably easily say, yeah, they're done, put the nail in the coffin. But they have it's crazy because I was just talking about the Mariners on a video that I did today, and they have a homegrown rotation. It is amazing what they've done with that rotation. And they have that, right? But the problem has been the offense. And yeah, they just made the switch, right? Scott Service now going with Dan Wilson. You got Edgar Martinez in the fold now. You got a whole month of baseball left. And we saw it a couple of years ago, right? Joe Girardi, getting dismissed as the Phillies manager, right? Going with Rob Thompson, obviously earlier in the season. But, sometimes a little something like that can get a bit of a spark going. We've seen weird things happen before, and we've seen with the Mariners in the past, go back to 1995, they overcame an even bigger deficit during that time. So, yeah, like you said, you don't want to, take your foot off the gas, right? You got to really go full throttle here. I can't believe I just said full throttle. My goodness, I heard that every day last offseason for my Red Sox. But you have to. You cannot let up here. So.
Yeah, real quick, this is a note from Mark Berman. He said that since August 1st, the Astros pitching staff has been the best in baseball with an MLB best 2.63 ERA. They also rank first in OP opponent batting average with a 188 batting average, and second in strikeouts with 269 in that span. The starters ERA in that stretch is the MLB best, 259. So the Astros starters are doing their job, and we're going to continue this conversation. And thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 off instantly when you play $5. Look, I play PrizePicks, so do 5 million other active members. It is the most exciting way to play fantasy sports, unlike any other app. PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. That's right. You pick more or less from 2 to 6 player stat projections. Watch the winnings roll in. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and get $50 instantly again when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win every week in September. I've already done that. I've already put money in there. And there's also weekly and daily fantasy teams. You can draft a fantasy team, and I've done that recently. And you sit there and pick with about 9 other players, and you let those guys go on week 1, and you can change your roster every time. You can do $1 entry. You can do $10 entries. You can do all kinds of stuff. Even you can see if CJ Stroud is going to get over 4,150 yards. So go to PrizePicks today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly. When you pay $5, PrizePicks, run your game.
The Mariners were off today, so the Astros now have a 4-game lead. They play 3 more games, I believe, against the Royals. This is an interesting matchup. This is a playoff implication matchup. So the Astros have got to play great baseball. To see them come back in this game was great. And let's go ahead. I know we talked a little bit about about the pitching, but let's focus a little bit on the offense. You had Alvarez. I know a lot of people have criticized him for not hitting well at home. He had 2 hits in today's game. You had Hayward with that double to score 2 runs. Singleton contributed today. You had DeZenzo with a big bases loaded walk to give the Astros the lead at the time. So that was a big thing for the rookie. But overall, what are some other good positive takeaways, Brett?
Well, you had Mauricio Dubon's 2-run single. I mean, Jason Hayward, gets the scoring started. That's where they had the 2 runs before they lost that lead. You had John Singleton hit a double. I mean, look, it was pretty much top to bottom today for the most part for the Astros contributing. Altuve did get a walk, did score a run despite going 0 for 3. Bregman, well, he got tossed, so he didn't have a chance to really contribute. But, man, I was really hoping Gamble would get a hit. They intentionally walked him. I mean, who is intentionally walking Ben Gamble in a game?
Mets fans are screaming right now. They're like, where the heck has this guy been?
And they walked him to get to Jeremy Pena. If I'm Pena, I'm taking that personally. I'm absolutely taking that personally. Here's a guy that really hasn't been contributing much. He's been on teams, and Jeremy Pena, he's been a hero here. He's an ALCS MVP. He's a World Series MVP. He's got a Gold Glove. I mean, all this stuff. And you're walking that dude to face me? Man, I really hope Jeremy turns that into some internal motivation, because that could really light a fire. But Yordan Alvarez narrowly missed a home run tonight. Narrowly. I mean, if he hits that ball maybe a quarter of an inch, a little bit higher on that barrel, and he doesn't get as much, he literally hit a pop fly that almost went out of the ballpark. That's how powerful he is. I just love what I saw, because this is a game that if you can beat good teams like this, when you get to the playoffs, you're not so worried, because, Robbie, one of the things is this offense has been inconsistent. When we get runners in scoring position, we have not been good. Like early in the year, we were leading the league in batting average, but with runners in scoring position, we were horrible. And so, that's kind of the ups and downs of baseball, but that's why I say a win is a win.
Yeah, and the Astros need all the wins going down the stretch. And there were some roster moves today. Brian Keane has been pitching some great baseball recently, and I hated the fact that they had to send him down. But at some point, it's a numbers game. You got to get Ryan Presley back up here. Based on his pedigree alone. So I agree with that move. You also had to, I know you talked about yesterday, Chas McCormick was optioned down to AAA and for Jason Hayward. And also Jansen Junk was junked off the roster.
Junked, right?
So I promised myself I would not do that, but it's just too tempting. But for the most part, I hope Brian Keane gets a chance to come back at some point, but at the same point, Forrest Whitley deserves a chance. I mean, the dude pitched 2 innings again to add to his awesome stretch he's been doing, left striking out and shutout baseball. But at some point, he should get a look. I know that they're talking about possibly bringing Rafael Montero. And Robbie, I want to ask you about Montero because the Astros did DFA him, and they went ahead and he accepted a role at AAA, and he's been pitching some good baseball. I know Joe Espada said that he is an option for a September call-up. Would you give Montero another chance?
I mean, why not? I feel like the bullpen, they've had a couple, little problems here and there. Well, not Hader, right? Hader's just been flat out amazing for a while now. But Brian Abreu, he's had his ups and downs, right? He came in tonight, wasn't able to really get it locked down. But what Montero has done in the past. I don't see why not at this point. You mentioned a guy like Forrest Whitley too. I feel like they could use another arm or two in that bullpen, right? You've mentioned, Presley, he hasn't really been at the top of his game lately. I think why not at this point? You got time to, see if maybe guys can get some roles established, for the postseason. Maybe someone can show up here in the last month.
Yeah, Eric, you mentioned Forrest Whitley striking out 2 over 2 scoreless, .82 ERA, 5 walks, 30 Ks, 22 innings in his last 20 outings of relief. So right there, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. And this is a hitter's league. It's not like he's throwing to chumps. I mean, these dudes hit home runs. These guys can hit. It's a PCL for a reason. And he's doing this. And, Whitley does deserve a shot. Maybe they go with the veteran thing with Montero. And I know we're nearing the end, but one of the things I would like to talk about, and, we know that Justin Verlander is who he is. And in a playoff scenario, Joe Espada's probably going to put him as your game 1 starter. But right now, I wouldn't put him as my game 1 starter. I want Hunter Brown or Valdez as my game 1 starter. I want Hunter Brown. I want Valdez. I want Kikuchi, and I want Eric Getty in there. And you notice I didn't mention JV. It's not that I don't want JV, but we know baseball is a pecking order sport, and they're not going to knock a first ballot Hall of Famer into a role other than one of the 4 guys that goes out there. But it's kind of a nice problem to have. Hopefully one of those guys, fellas, can go into the bullpen like Luis Garcia did or Hunter Brown did that one year in 2022 and have some key outings even in the bullpen.
Yeah, I would say that Ronel Blanco at this point is probably going to go into the bullpen, definitely if the Astros make the playoffs. Right. I think the other guys have showed that they deserve to be in rotation. The only thing is you can only have 4 in the playoff rotation, but you do need a long guy. So the Astros have to decide. And Verlander is going to be in that rotation. Valdez is going to be in that rotation. I think Hunter Brown has earned his way onto that rotation. And Kikuchi, with what you had to give up, he's earned his way onto that rotation. So that leaves Spencer Arrighetti likely as the guy that's left out, but he also can be the guy that if let's say that Kikuchi has a bad start or Verlander gets shelled in the first inning, something happens, you can always bring him in and he can go and pitch 6 innings or 7 innings and do something like that. So that's the only thing I can think of. Robbie, any thoughts?
No, you pretty much nailed it, like all on the head there. I think at the end of the day, a couple little tweaks, with the Astros, down the stretch here, I think could really help set them up, for another good postseason run at the end of the day. Like you mentioned earlier, when it comes to the offense, they got to kind of figure this out when it comes to, really getting in those runs at the right time. Kyle Tucker coming back is only going to help. I like that they're also not rushing him to come back because they got plenty of time here, right? You got, what is today? The 29th. So you still have over a month to go here. We all know what he can do, especially in the postseason as well. I think at this point, the Astros, they're in good shape here, right? They're in a good position where, try and figure out those last couple of roles when it comes to the postseason roster, figure out, what's going on health-wise with these guys, but again, I'll mention the starting pitching again, right? It's all coming together at the right time. I think they're in good shape.
Brett, real quick, I do want to say Joe Espada did say about Kyle Tucker. He said there's still a small limp. He said he feels it less, especially the outfield drill and throwing home plate, the moving around, the accuracy of the throw, the strength behind the throws. That all looked really good. You could barely see anything hindering him in his outfield defense. Translation, when he gets out there and the adrenaline that normally is out there when a baseball player is getting out there for the first time in a long time, he's not thinking about it. But when he's in the locker room, you see him limping around like us old people do when we get home from school and everything.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you know what? This has been great. It's great to talk about an Astros win, but it's great to bring on someone like you, Robbie. Robbie, tell us once again where the people can find you.
Yeah. You can just find me over on YouTube. Again, just my name. And we're just talking baseball there all the time, especially with the postseason coming up. That's only going to get more fun as we get closer to that. A lot of content coming out over there. Again, myself and Jim Riley of the Barreled Up Podcast over on Odyssey. So come check that out as well. Just a fun time, right? We're starting to get past the good old dog days of August. But we're getting into that fun time of the year now. So,
Brett, I'm okay to stay on for a little bit. Robbie, if you want to stay on for a little bit, but we're going to go in the audio version. But guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go and check out the Locked On Astros podcast, and we'll see you later.
We're gonna.
Okay. All right. We are back. So let's just go and continue this. Yeah. We'll do a few more minutes. So we have to kind of cut out at 32 minutes for audio. But overall, if the Astros do make the playoffs, what do you think their chance is, Robbie, of actually knocking off some of the AL East teams?
I mean, you have to go at least 50%, in my opinion, right? I mean, I think you have to give them the benefit of the doubt based off of what they've done for the last 7 years, right? Making it to 7 straight American League Championship Series. But again, I'll say it one more time. The pitching is coming together, right? That's what you need in the postseason. Now, when it comes to matchups, right? Let's say, they match up, Orioles, American League Championship Series. Let's say they get that far, right? You're going to have a couple of pretty decent options to go up against, right? Corbin Burns, Zach Eflin when he comes back. You got a young guy in Grayson Rodriguez there. So that won't be easy in a 7-game series. But with how guys are pitching right now, I think you have to think, they have at least a shot against the Orioles, of course, more than a shot, in my opinion. That would be a very fun series if that ends up happening. I think that could go either way. I think with the Astros at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to they're just such an experienced team, right? These guys have been there, done that. They know what they're doing over there, right? You have to be, in my opinion, almost perfect to beat the Astros. I mean, that's what the Rangers had to do, right? Last year. They had to, sorry to bring that up, but it took every bit of effort from Texas to get by Houston. So I think the same thing's going to happen again this year. If you're the Orioles, the Yankees, whoever in the American League, they're not going to be an easy out no matter what. So.
See, I think last year, I was at ALCS Game 5, and after that game, I was convinced that the Astros were absolutely going to win at least one of the 2 games. And then I was at Game 7. And I've actually never seen the team that beaten down. I mean, you could tell fifth inning, they were done. I was like, they are not coming back. The only way they'd come back is if the hand of God took the Rangers off of the baseball field. The Rangers everything worked for them. Most of their guys had career years. Montgomery was a beast. And, Fromber he had a horrible game. I mean, and so things just really fell out of place for the Astros, where things fell into place for the Rangers. And going to this year, I think the Yankees are going to be tough. They're going to be tougher than they normally are, because Juan Soto is a huge power, is a huge piston in that engine with Judge and with those guys, right? If you make it to the World Series, everybody's talking about the Dodgers. Everybody's talking about the Phillies. Nobody's talking about the Brewers. That's probably good for the Brewers. And Robbie, I've been saying it for the last, I guess, 3 weeks, that I really think the Brewers are a team that everybody needs to be careful of, because they've been really good this year and nobody seems to be talking. Now they're talking about the D-backs, but the Astros, I think, have the ability to get through the AL. My concern grows deeper when we go to the World Series, because those NL, opponents are very tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at the Dodgers, if you look at the Padres, even have a good team this year. The NL is very deep this year, but you also have the teams in the AL Central battling out. So you have teams like the Royals, the Guardians, the Twins are still in it. So there's a whole bunch of teams that are like, is there even going to be a team that reaches 100 wins this year? And when's the last time we can say that about a season? So there's just so much parity this year in baseball, and I think that's good. I think that's why the trade deadline was the way it was, because you didn't see a lot of trades until like later on, and then it started hitting like that. But everybody thinks that they're in it because there's so many teams in it. And this is a Rob Manfred had a book. This is my chemistry book I'm working on, but this is exactly what he drew up. He's like, I wanted to have more teams in at the trade deadline. That's why we made all these rules and everything. So I think that if you're looking at where the Astros are, they're in a good spot, because they're, knock on wood, their rotation is intact and healthy for the first time this season. And so now they're just waiting for their lineup to get intact. Their bullpen seems to be intact. I think the Astros are going to get hot at the right time. So now they just need to hold off the Mariners. They need to somehow, I don't know if they can. It would be nice to get in that either that 1 or 2 seed, but I don't know if they can. I don't know if they have enough games left, but they're going to have to go on a heck of a winning streak to do that, and hope that there's a lot of teams that go on a losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
So Robbie, so someone in here is asking, if you were to pick the Astros to play in the ALCS, who do you think you see them going against most likely? If it's the Astros on one side, is it the Orioles, and why is it them? Or is it, do you see the Guardians making a move? Do you see the Yankees? I mean, I know the Yankees fans don't want the Astros to face them. I mean, bottom line, we own them in the playoffs. But who do you see as the most likely opponent? And we're throwing out complete like what if scenarios here.
I'm glad you asked, because I was actually putting together what I think the bracket is going to end up looking like. Right now, Cleveland, they have not been very good here in the second half. A great first half, but they have really been coming back down to earth here in the last couple of weeks. So, right now I'm wondering, could they end up being the 6th seed? And if the Astros hang on, win the division, well, there's your wild card matchup. And I mean, I'm going Houston there, because Cleveland, their starting pitching is so it's not there, right? Good bullpen, right? They got a few good bats, but Houston, I think, outclasses them when it comes to the offense, the starting pitching, clearly. And the Astros have a bullpen. Maybe it's not Cleveland's bullpen, but they still have guys out there that can get the job done. To me, I would go Houston in that wild card matchup if it ends up being the Guardians. If it's the Twins, we'll see. The Twins they're a hard team to read, but I would still probably lean towards the Astros there if it ends up being the Royals. To me, I just feel like the Royals, as with their entire bullpen, I don't know. I'm not too high on the Royals. I like what they've done this year. I just don't know if they would have enough firepower to get by the Astros. I think their bullpen is a little too weak. So however that shakes up, whoever wins that division, whoever ends up getting those wild card spots, I think Houston gets by either one of those central teams personally. And then if they end up matching up, against, I think the Royals right now, I'm predicting that they're going to find a way to win that division. They've been playing, I think, better baseball than Cleveland. And yeah, they got the loss tonight, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm just not high on Cleveland. So I think Houston, no matter what, whoever they end up going up against, in that first round, I don't know. I just like Houston better than whoever they would match up in that wild card round, the division round. Right now, I see them getting to the ALCS. I think they have an easy path to get there unless, there's a big upset.
Right.
For me right now, I love Baltimore, right? To get to that American League Championship Series. I've been really high on Baltimore this year. That could go either way, in my opinion, right? I think Houston, with how they've been pitching, in the rotation, I think you would have to maybe give them a bit of an edge depth-wise there. Baltimore's bullpen, it's been a little up and down. You don't know what's going to happen with Kimbrel there. But when it comes to the offense with Baltimore, it's just such a deep lineup. Yeah. I'm undecided on that, but Houston, I think, would definitely have a chance to get by Baltimore. If that ends up being the ALCS, it's going 7 games, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, because we swept them here. We went there and we split it.
Right.
But that series, the Astros were 1 or 2 plays away in both games of sweeping them again. So I think, and we all know the regular season doesn't mean anything. Go back to the famed World Series title where your Red Sox were down 3-1, and you came back and beat the freaking Yankees, because we all know what we think. Yankees suck, right? We all
hold on. It was 3-0. 3-0.
3-0. I'm sorry, 3-0, not 3-1.
Sorry, it was a touching moment in my life. I can never forget. No. 3-1 was 2007 against Cleveland.
Okay, you're right. So down 3-0, but that right there, it's like I just think the Astros in the playoffs they still have that swag. And I think I believe in them more this year than I was believing in them last year. And I didn't think a month ago I would say that. Eric, did you think we'd be talking like this a month ago? I don't think.
And I don't care what the Astros, the Yankees did against the Astros this year. Nobody in New York wants to face the Astros in the postseason. Right. And you can probably ask anybody in Minnesota. They don't want to face the Astros. So just because of how they've played the Astros in playoffs. So I think that Robbie, I thank you once again for coming on the podcast. I thank everybody. We had almost 300 people tune into the extra innings edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Once again, Robbie, one more time, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, YouTube. All right, just my name, Robbie Hyde. Right, we're talking baseball there all the time. And Barreled Up Podcast on Odyssey. And myself and Jim Riley, Ball Cap Sports. We're just talking whatever's going on in the baseball world. So,
all right, guys, that's all we got for this edition of Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. He's Brett Chancey. Go and make us your first listen. Go and check out Michael Connor with the Locked On Astros podcast as well. And thank you for making us first listen. Go ahead and subscribe to us and go and watch us on your Amazon Fire TV stick as well. And once again, Robbie, thanks again for joining. And we will see you tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll be talking about another Astros victory. Right. Go Stros.
Go Stros.
Oops, wrong one.
What kind of music is that? What were you doing? Listen to a vortex.